In the Depsang and Demchok disengagement, it's now in the final completion stage as far as the status is involved. What is left now is a cross-verification of removal of temporary structures. The Chinese posts have been removed from the Junction in Depsang. An official announcement of the disengagement is now expected within 24 hours and patrolling is now expected to resume within the next 3 days. As per what we're getting to know from our sources, an official announcement is expected within 24 hours. Talking about the process, 2 patrols will be allowed per month with prior notification, and each patrolling unit will be limited to a maximum of 4 soldiers. As per sources, a regular flag meeting will follow in order to strengthen confidence-building measures between the countries. Ajay Jandial is joining us for more on this story. Ajay, what is the situation on ground as far as the actual disengagement is concerned?
Definitely, continuous process of removing the temporary structure from the spot, especially the Depsang and Demchok area, that is continuously taking place, and forces, those who are on the ground, they are as per the commitments between the 2 countries, they are continuously taking place, and they are doing it, and definitely this is to ensure that that commitment has to be fulfilled, and also to further disengage and start the patrolling on the ground. That is what basically has been discussed between the 2 countries. And after we have seen that Prime Minister Narendra Modi and she's meeting over there, the process was that has fastened, and which is going to result in that in next 2 to 3 days patrolling will start on the ground. So this is the big development over here, because we have seen that after Galwan incident, where number of troops of on both the side, they basically were killed during the clashes, and number of incident even after that has taken place. That was the major thing, and that question that when it is going to be normalized. So things have been normalized now, and things have been further moved towards the normal situation. And after this disengagement in the Demchok and the other areas, adjoining areas, it is expected that next step would be for the a few other further LAC areas, especially in the Galwan as well, and the Pangong and Finger areas as well, because we have seen that number of times that incident and some incident of clashes were taken place over there. So that's why it is important that that decision which has been taken for these 2 areas, that will be extended to the further areas as well.
All right. Also, the fact is, Ajay, that we are expecting perhaps an official announcement in the next 24 hours. The disengagement process has been completed and then normal patrolling will again begin. Is that correct?
Yes, that is what our sources are saying, that after this, removal of temporary structures and other vehicles which were there on the ground of both the forces, it is expected that in next 2 to 3 days, this announcement by the ground commanders will be, also here, and that will also further lead to the patrolling as well from the both the side. Because earlier, if you talk about the pre-2020 situation, that will be only done after this patrolling will be restored in these 2 locations, because earlier patrolling was taking place, but after the Galwan incident and other incident which took place on Arunachal, in Tawang and in Ladakh as well, the patrolling was totally stopped and there was tension on the line of actual control. But after around after number of meetings between the 2 forces, between the commanders and now the CA and Prime Minister Modi's meeting, this major development is taking place, that things has been normalized, and after the removal of the temporary structure, it is expected that in next 2 to 3 days there will be announcement that when they are going to start the patrolling like it was happening in the 2020.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Ajay Jandial, for joining us with that ground report. Also, let's move on quickly and apprise our viewers about the latest situation on ground with regards to, of course, the movement and the disengagement of course, troops that is taking place currently. So this is where the status, of course, is currently. This is where India can patrol up to. As you can see, of course, this is the border area, and they are, of course, the Charding-Ningling intersection has been, of course, one of the points of contention. The Ningling area is right here, and the Charding area is, of course, over here. So this, of course, is where India is going to be patrolling up to. And as far as China is concerned, China can patrol up to, of course, this area. You can see, of course, the Indus River also marked, of course, on this side of the border. This is, of course, the Char-Ningling intersection, and where the Indians can, of course, now patrol up to, and, of course, where the Chinese can also patrol up to. Meanwhile, let's also tell you about the other contentious areas, Demchok, Depsang, etc. Let's quickly draw up this slide on our screens if we can. So we can see over here, of course, on our screens, the August 2021 picture of the Chinese PLA camp. This is where it stood currently. Let's put that full frame if we can. That's where the Chinese PLA camp, of course, stood in August 2021. The Chinese build-up had, of course, taken place there in Demchok. This is, of course, what it looked like in 2022. The PLA post in that area. Of course, a lot of build-up, of course, there. This is Demchok, the situation as far as the Chinese build-up was concerned. The PLA armored division, as you can see, of course, tanks, command shelters and whatnot were in large number. This is the situation, of course, in 2020 on your screens. The Chinese disengagement now is, of course, happening in Demchok. You can see the 2024 situation now through satellite maps. You can see there how dismantling has taken place of those camps. Of course, the tanks have also been moved out in large numbers. And, of course, there are much less troops as well there. So the situation very, very clearly on your screens. These are pictures that are, of course, satellite pictures that you can see very, very clearly. Okay, let's also get in our guest now. Major General Sudhakarji is joining us live on the broadcast, defense expert. Also live with us is Major General Dhruv Katur, Director, India Foundation. Gautam Mukherjee, senior journalist, also joins us live on the broadcast. Major General Sudhakarji, clearly, of course, on ground, disengagement happening with full earnest, with full gusto. The spirit of words translating into action on ground as well.
Uday, good evening. Thank you for getting me to your show. Compliments to my best wishes to the co-panelists and the viewers. My personal and independent comment on the whole issue is, yes, we have reasons to compliment each other. Every Indian should feel very happy that after 4 long years of extended standoff, some sanity seems to have sunk into the head of Chinese. And it's a good move. It's a good move because the geopolitics in the world today is going through a huge churn. 1 year back, people used to allege that India was in the American camp and the America appears to have fallen apart. All of a sudden, Pannon and Niger and all kinds of Bangladesh has been created and host of other activities. And we all are conscious of the fact what is happening in Myanmar is a greater design of CIA. Post-2006, of course, when the president of Myanmar was Thein Sein, and there was a major departure from their erstwhile policies. So having given that as a backdrop, let me inject some degree of caution. We need to understand when we talk about pre-April 2020, that status quo ante should be restored to. We should be mindful of the following facts. First and foremost thing is that between 1986 till 2011, China had undertaken extensive and very elaborate infrastructure development in the Tibetan Plateau, as also Xinjiang province, bordering the India, the northern borders. Now, having done that, we are conscious of the fact that there have been major agreements signed with China, protocol agreements in 93, in 96, 2005, 2012 and 13. While this is also deserves to be given kudos to both the states, both the countries, we somehow were not cognizant of certain facts that in the process of building infrastructure, China by and by started doing incremental salami slicing, getting closer to the points, the PPs, I'm talking about the Eastern Ladakh from 1 to 65. And while getting closer, it also started building infrastructure to accommodate the satellite post very close to the points, which we have been calling as RPP, protective patrolling points. These points, incidentally, initially conceived way back by the China Study Group in 1976, but formally they had been issued out or promulgated by the China Study Group in 1996-97. from 96 to 96, 97 till 2013, we kept on carrying out our regular patrolling up to these points as per the patrolling program issued by Military Operation Directorate in consultation with China Study Group. However, following things have taken place. One, yes, we signed the agreement called as 1993, that is BPTA, that is Peace and Tranquility Agreement with China. But at the same time, in 94, India had promulgated a resolution in the parliament that is claiming that the pure J&K is an integral, inseparable part of India, and we will take it. It was ours, it is ours, and will, no matter what happens, India will sooner or later take it back. This happened to be a turning point, a sour point in the relationship of India and China, to the best of my understanding. Thereafter, second point I wanted to highlight is, there was a time where in the entire stretch of 832 kilometers of eastern Ladakh, at some point in time, maybe 70s or 80s, we had just about two companies, Jack Militia. Now from two companies, our strength kept on building up gradually, come to close to the Operation Vijay, where the troops had to be de-inducted. During the de-induction phase of Operation Vijay, when the Chinese were close to the border, they started carrying out some infrastructure development across our perceived line of actual control. They included places like Loop Road, Depsang Plain, they included places like PP13, PP15, and a host of other places along the Indus Valley. After this happened, when our troops started getting back after the Operation Vijay, the density of troops from India's side had gone up significantly. What Chinese patrols used to see as one company or one battalion earlier, we had a significant rise in the troop density. So they started coming across larger number of troops. That actually led to fist-cuffs and face-off and host of very hostile actions. Of course, guided by the protocols that we had signed. And it carried on till 2013. 2013 was another watershed timeline, I would say, in respect of China. With Xi coming back to coming to power, their philosophy of geopolitics changed from putting your head down, biding time, to aggressive projection of power. With aggressive projection of power, India also had to take suitable response, and we started building up our troops. Then came the COVID pandemic, and from COVID pandemic, thereafter, there has been a double down effort on India's part to, at least if nothing, to come to some parity, some degree of parity as far as the infrastructure is concerned, as far as the force level is concerned. Today, we are in a formidable position. So having given this preamble of the narrative, now you are at, I'm sure will be at wit's end. When you go back to April 2020, what it means is that the patrol of China will be allowed to come to those points. One example I'll give you. The patrol of China in eastern Ladakh will be allowed to come to a place called Butse. Butse is bang on the road, which is connecting TS DBO, Durbuk Shok DBO road. This is 256 kilometers. It took a lot of time to make this road. It has enhanced our connectivity and also response metrics. They want to somehow or the other choke or dominate and deny this particular road access. So their patrols will keep coming. I distinctly remember having pushed back their patrol to our perceived LAC as far as possible, which is at PP 10, 11, 11 alpha, 12 and 13. They have built their infrastructure for living habitation along close to these points along our perceived LAC. Their patrols will keep coming to Durbuk, where Butse, where the Tibetan troops are located. If that is acceptable, I have nothing to say. Similar type of things will take place in Loop Road, which is there in DBO. Similar things will start taking place in Pengongso, north bank of Pengongso from PP4, finger 4 to finger 8. It is part of India's area. Sirijap is a location right since 1962. It has been there with China. And so is the bridge which is connecting further north and reducing their mobilization time frame by about 4.5 to 6 hours. So all these things put together, I would only urge the decision makers or those people who are dealing with the subject, I'm sure they would be conscious of all these developments, to make sure that agreements are so formulated that it does not take us back in time, as also the domination and the rightful entitlement of the piece of land which belongs to India. Back to you there.
Yes, let me also, in fact, quickly take that to Major General Katoch as well. Major General Katoch, on, of course, the progress so far. Is it on expected lines? Perhaps within the next 24 hours, do you expect that announcement to take place of complete disengagement from the contentious points?
Thank you, Uday. Yes, I think, as far as this particular agreement has taken place, it is not a snap decision because the Prime Minister of India and the Chinese President met in the BRICS summit at Kazan. A lot of spade work has gone into this, and a great deal of input has been given by the military, and of course, the diplomats are also involved. So I think whatever the agreement which has come out now, it has taken us back to the time when the hostilities, when the patrol clashes took place in 2020, and then created a great deal of friction on the border. So we have come back to that stage. The contention of General Sudhakarji is absolutely correct, but I'm absolutely certain and sanguine that the military is cognizant of what is happening on the border, and they would have taken all these factors into account. More importantly, you see, it doesn't serve the purpose of either India or China to keep up hostilities in this place. The results are going to be very minimal. It is a difficult area, in terms of territory, etc. The returns are very, very limited, but the number of troops deployed and the resources deployed is very high. We can well do without it by simply having peace and tranquility on the border. I think the important issue is going to be how that patrolling is carried out. One, I'm quite certain there'll be no further patrol clashes because the line has been laid, and the timings are going to be different. But more importantly, I think what we need to do is to ensure that in future also, the Chinese do not build any structure onto these places which are now being patrolled. Because should they do that, then it is a violation of the agreement, and then we will have to go and destroy those places. I don't think there's any option but to that. And that has to be made, I think, amply clear to the Chinese also. I don't think they will do it, but the point is we need to be careful and be certain of that. The last point I want to give is, while this de-induction has taken place, and there is no eyeball-to-eyeball contact, which is a good thing because anything can happen if there's eyeball-to-eyeball contact, the larger disengagement from the depth areas, I do not think is going to take place, at least this winter. Then we will see as to how it goes from here. But the quantum of troops which we have presently got in eastern Ladakh is going to practically remain the same. Yes, we will remove the heavy armor, but the artillery deployment will remain. The infantry will remain wherever they have to be in depth areas. So that is going to be the status quo for this winter. I think the Chinese will do likewise. But at least there is a forward disengagement, which is a good step, and it will continue. That is the positivity of the whole thing. Uday.
Absolutely. Gautam Mukherjee, what are likely now to be the modalities after disengagement is completed? What are likely to be the new patrolling, points, and also what the situation you believe will be on ground henceforth now?
Well, I think it's a hard-won thaw of sorts after 4 years of negotiation. And while the patrolling on both sides have been agreed, and the process is also agreed that each side will inform the other side before they set off, the number of people, 4 people on patrolling at a time. All of this is on the face of it, an improvement, and it will involve a small degree of pullback on both sides. In India's case, the pullback is more comfortable because we are closer to our planes. As far as China is concerned, they pull back, but they're still on the high Tibetan plateau where it's very hard to live, to breathe, especially for Han Chinese soldiers. So it is a difficult place for them to mount military operations or even a holding operation. Will this sustain? My own guess is there will be violations in the patrolling as the time goes on. There will be small conflicts that will arise. And apart from just the patrolling, as General Katoch said, are we going to pull back more and they're going to pull back more? We don't know, and it is unlikely. The Chinese attitude has not much changed. Today's news says Commerce Minister Goel was talking to the German minister. We have been importing tunnel boring machines which are German but made in China, and China has put a stop to further issues of this tunnel bore machine to India. So, this is typical of Chinese attitudes. Put a spoke in the wheel wherever possible. I think if India is seduced into thinking that this is the beginning of a thaw and normalization, I wouldn't go so far. And, it's welcome insofar as it is movement forward. Where we go from here it depends very much on the Indian hardball attitude. It is partly, and I would say largely, the Indian hardball attitude that has persuaded China to even agree to this much of a thaw, because they realize that the costs of trying to be provocative, they've tried it here in Tawang, in Ladakh, in different places, and found that India is not budging, and it costs them quite a lot in troops, whether they admit it or not. So let us see how this proceeds. I do not expect large gains in the foreseeable future. Uday.
All right. Let me quickly conclude with some closing comments. I'm almost out of time, but I'll give you both 60 seconds. Major General Sudhakarji.
India should identify a benchmark timeline of pre-Operation Vijay as a geographical and also timeline to refer to while negotiating with China. China should be brought to a kind of a platform where we can negotiate from a position of advantage. That is perhaps, to the best of my knowledge, having served all along northern border, which will give us better dividends. Meaning that wherever they were there prior to Operation Vijay, that should be the landmark. I know they will not agree because they are well ahead of it. Second point, mobilization differential, what Gautam brought out. Chinese, they are on a high platform, tabletop. They take just about 14 minutes to 22 minutes to reach the point of action or any kind of friction. If our troops fall back to where we are today at 12,000 or 9,000 feet, well, it takes anything between 8 days to mobilize our troops. So therefore, we have to be mindful of this the terrain friction and keep our troops close to whichever line is, mobilization differential should be equal. Third point, I would say that the border villages have come up in respect of China. This is a totally arid and absolutely barren area. No border villages are existing as of now. However, the military villages have come up. There is a concentration camp, military station, which has come up, which can accommodate 1,20,000 about 110 kilometers away from DBO. Fourth point, supply chain dependency. I do agree. No matter how much of de-risking and diversification we do, decoupling will do. Not only India, whole world is dependent on China, many things. If we are looking at a $30 trillion economy, our dependency on China cannot be severed in any manner. That, be mindful and respectful of the fact, we should also keep that in the factor to balance out our course of action and approach. And last but not the least is that the infrastructure development in respect of China, in respect of India, must continue non-stop in a, I would say, not incrementally full throttle, because we are miles behind.
All right. Major General Katoch, last word to you.
Points to make. I just got 2 points to make. One, whatever we do, trust but verify. That is one. Number two, continue with the pace of infrastructure development along the LAC. That is going to give us vital returns. Uday.
My thanks to all of our guests for joining us on this discussion.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.